to the Fallon Forum. Greetings from flood country. Yep, flooding fears are rising as rainfall continues to dump itself on Iowa and much of the Midwest and much of the country for that matter. We're going to talk about that today, a bunch of other issues on the plate as well. I do want to take a second to thank the Iowa chapter of the Sierra Club, also Iowa Physicians for Social Responsibility, the two organizations that help make this show possible. I want to thank Gateway Marketing Cafe for sponsoring this segment. And a few of our business supporters. Again, folks, if you believe in the alternative to right-wing radio, go out there and support the brave businesses that put their names on the line by associating themselves with the likes of me. For example, Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling. You got a furnace and air conditioning unit that needs to be looked at? This is the guy to call. 371. Every number in Des Moines used to start with a 2, Maddie. 371-2114. That's 371-2114. Got a recommendation for lunch, folks, or dinner. Hawk Restaurant. Hawk Restaurant is run by Suman Hawk, a great entrepreneur who gets 90% of his food from Iowa farms. He's at East 5th and Walnut in the East Village neighborhood. And looking ahead, get this on your calendar. November 9th, the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. And no, you don't have to be a recent immigrant, but you've got to have a good business idea and believe that there are folks out there who can help you with that because they do at this place. It's a great event. It's an all-day event, November 9th at Drake University. Check it out on my website. Okay, later in the program, we're going to talk a little bit. I got to respond to some of these 2 cents worth issues that are all over the place on climate change, on foreign policy, on the media, on communism. I also got to, I got to share with you a letter to the editor in the Register criticizing them for their lack of leadership on climate change. Of course, that came out prior to the great article in yesterday's paper about the March for Climate Action. I also got to share with you some exciting news about Walmart. Yep, paying $81 million for a lawsuit. Good for them. And more importantly, good for the attorneys for those who brought that case. Also, some interesting stuff on ExxonMobil. Well, they're not only bashing climate change right now, they're also bashing gays. But we're going to talk about that later in the program. Dan Kelly is going to join us today, folks. Dan Kelly is going to be talking about something we haven't discussed ever on the show before, and that is hydroelectric power. And I believe Nikisha Phillips is going to join us. She's getting darn close to delivering that baby, but I believe she will be able to share an update on her situation when she toward the end of the program. Okay, so let's go to our phone lines and welcome Ron Yarnell to the show. Ron?
How you doing, Ed?
Why the heck aren't you in my studio today?
I needed to be someplace to do some work. So, needed to phone it in today.
That's vague enough where you should run for public office.
Not that foolish.
All right. Well, thank you. Hey, you've got climate change on your mind.
Well, yeah. There's just some issues about it that I don't see addressed or that kind of I struggle with. And the first deal is that I'm trying to figure out why the media cannot communicate the opinion, the learned opinion, okay, the professional opinion of the scientific community, of the climatologist community, and instead they go to politicians, and no offense, Ed, but they go to activists. Nothing wrong with being an activist.
Oh, I thought you were going to say talk show host. Now I am offended because activists know a lot more than talk show hosts.
Okay, and there's nothing wrong with any of those categories, but it just like I want to hear people who do this for a living talk about it, and if 99% of those folks say, well, this is an issue, I'm inclined to go along with that, okay? But what we get from the media is, well, there's a controversy, and then we have politicians. We have one major political party in this country, which will go nameless, other than to say they're the grand old party, where the...
Wait. You can't get away with that. What do you mean? Say that again in English?
Let me finish.
Okay.
We have one major political party where it's politically correct to say that climate change is a hoax.
Gotcha.
Okay, and it's like...
Well, it's not just politically acceptable. It is a litmus test. I mean, look at extremely former Congressman Bob Inglis from South Carolina, ousted by his Republican base by 70%, over 70% of his former His constituents voted him out because of his advocacy of a reasonable stance on climate change. He did not embrace the climate change is a hoax mantra that I think, as you point out, is central to the GOP's doctrine.
Okay, and my question is,
Ron, real quick, you've got a lot of wind going on in the background of this, so do something else with your phone so we can hear you better, okay?
Why does that have credence when the voices of actual professionals, actual climatologists, you don't ever hear? And unless you go looking for it, unless you go searching on the internet, you look up their institutions and stuff like that. Okay, then you kind of get a handle on the fact that there is something like a 99% consensus, and it doesn't get
97 or 98. Let's not exaggerate, Ron.
Okay, 97. And that, when 97, 98% of people say we have an issue here.
Scientists, yeah.
People who study this, people who are invested in this, you take that seriously. You don't take seriously a politician who's being funded by interests that might be hostile to what action on climate change may entail. You don't even listen. I mean, Ed, like I said, I listen to you, okay? I understand where you're coming from, but I don't want to hear you first and foremost. I want to hear the science that informs you.
And it's a very good point, Ron. And to that point, when the update went out earlier this week announcing what the programs were for the Fallon Forum this week, and I listed Ron Yarnell talking about climate change, someone wrote, "Who is he and what are his credentials?" So what are your credentials to talk about climate change?
No, I'm not interested in talking about it. I'm interested in hearing about it, but hearing about it from
good distinction.
Hearing about it from people who know what they're talking about.
So, I mean, and you make a good point. Why do journalists? I mean, again, some journalists are just there to create sensationalism, but I think a lot of folks who report for a living are really concerned about truth and accuracy. I mean, they've got their biases, and those biases inevitably creep in even to the most balanced story. But journalists have that same type of objective, and I use the word in a good sense, conservative approach to presenting a story, to analyzing facts that scientists do. So I would think that there would be more affinity between those two professions, that journalists would be more inclined to cover a profession that they naturally would respect. I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's one issue. The next issue I have is, if we took action on climate change, the most significant action would be seeking non-carbon renewable energy sources. What in the long term is really the downside of that? Because I'm having trouble seeing one. I'm having trouble saying, well, if we decide to shift towards these other energy sources and play them to their full potential, boy, we'd be in big. Well, what trouble would we get into? Because I see it as kind of a win-win. Even if climate change is overstated, even if it's wrong, you know what?
What have we got to lose?
I mean, do we want to send a steady stream of 19-year-old kids to the Middle East to get their legs blown off? We see some kind of gain in that, being a mesh in these conflicts in which we can't get a handle on. Is there something?
Well, and of course, the response to that from the GOP and the climate change is a hoax folks is, well, drill, baby, drill. We need to get more of our oil from right here in the good old USA or in our friendly neighborhood to the north.
Everyone knows that the oil, petroleum, that's a global market.
Well, everyone knows that who's paying attention to basic economics. But again, that kind of fact doesn't seem to trouble the message makers in the GOP.
But back again, what is the downside of being extremely proactive towards moving towards non-petroleum, non-fossil fuel-based energy sources? I don't see one, and I'd like to hear an opponent of climate change explain what they might be, because I see it as actually empowering a new industrial revolution.
Mm-hmm. And Tom Friedman makes that case very strongly and I think very logically in his book Hot, Crowded, and Flat, or whatever order those three words occur in. Yeah, and I think it's hard to argue against that. Again, as you said, even if we were wrong, and there's no reason to believe we are right now, there's no reason to doubt that 97, 98% of the scientists are mistaken. In fact, everything they're saying is coming true with a vengeance and coming true more quickly than they said it would. Even in that 1 or 2% of the possibility range that we're wrong, it's a good thing for the economy to move in that direction. Certainly other countries are doing it.
Yeah, because right now we're struggling with the fact that our energy sources are dominated by a few clustered interests who are basically focused on the 19th century. They think I think sometimes they think the 19th century was the end of human history, and we need to return to those goals. And you know what?
Well, the 21st century might be the end of human history if we don't get our act together.
Well,
that's the bottom line.
And that would kind of segue into my next point. And at this point, I take the climate change activist community to task. I really think that it'd be helpful to dial back the rhetoric about saving the planet, because I don't believe it's about
I'm not convinced, Ron. I'm not convinced. I mean, we are having such a huge impact on the basic structure of this planet, the climate. I mean, and think about all the cavities that now exist in the earth where there used to be oil, where there used to be natural gas. I mean, we are really messing with this globe.
Well,
I don't think it's beyond destruction.
Let me state it like this. You know, the planet is 4.5 billion years old.
Or 4,000, depending on who you ask.
Okay. If you ask people who know what they're talking about, it's about 4.5 billion years old.
I'm going to go with that.
Okay. It has seen a lot of cataclysmic change. Continents have shifted around the planet. Mm-hmm. Asteroids have slugged into the planet, creating near-extinction events. The poles have shifted. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is a pretty sturdy planet. It can take a beating.
It's a good point. And I think you're probably right. I certainly hope you're right.
But my point is, so I don't really think that saving the planet is good. But on the other hand, we do have the capability of making it darn uncomfortable for ourselves. And actually
uncomfortable to the point of being unlivable.
Right, and to create extinction for other life forms. I don't think we can destroy the planet, but we sure can set it off in a new evolutionary direction. Mm. And so I'm a little leery of, and the other thing, that kind of rhetoric about saving the planet, in my mind, that makes the problem too large.
Well, so but again, I would not write that off as one of the genuine risks we face. I mean, beavers can destroy an ecosystem beyond. I mean, I guess it will recover eventually, but not in any way that it's functional for beavers in the future or anyone else. But maybe that's not a good analogy. Maybe that's a horrible analogy, but it's the best one that popped in my mind. I do think, we are powerful enough. There's enough of us, and we've done enough damage that it is within the realm of the possibilities that we could do it.
I think it's a marginal risk. Now, like I said, we can send the planet in a radically different evolutionary direction, which would be really uncomfortable for the human species and a lot of other species. But ultimately, I believe that life will out. Now, we don't have to be part of that equation, I think, is what we're struggling with. Or many people who live in vulnerable places around the world that are going to feel the effects of climate change.
Now, would you also agree that it's not too late? It's not too late to sort this out?
I don't know. And that's another question I have. I mean, is it too late?
See, I don't think so. I mean,
even if you got, well, the one thing that's interesting is right now there's this issue has no political traction in either party. Democrats sometimes make noises about it, but they're really not willing to fight for it. Republicans, like I said, they think the whole issue is a hoax.
Well, I hope we can wake them up with a big march across the country.
Well, and I've already discussed that with you. I'm a little dubious of that because there's really tremendous power and money invested on the status quo.
Well, there's also
about the disaster.
There's also tremendous power and money invested in people taking concrete action, people mobilizing for change. I mean, that is what changes things in this country. It's what changes things in any country.
Well,
people mobilizing on their principles, sacrificing, creating a message, a dialogue that, for all of its flaws, the Occupy movement changed the discussion about corporate America for a period of time. And because of all their money, the Koch brothers have changed the conversation about climate change. I think people can change the discussion about this issue if we mobilize in a strong enough, fashion, enough numbers, a good message, and I think this march can have that effect. Hey,
I'm wondering what would be the tipping point, because right now, I mean, I'll watch it with interest, but right now the odds are really stacked against. Again, because the political establishment has no interest in the issue.
Hey, I want to go to a call. If you're okay with that.
Okay.
I'm always a little bit. We never quite know how the calls are going to work out when we get multiple people on the line, but we're going to give it a shot. If it works, good. If it doesn't, we'll have to dump both of you. Hello, Frank. Is that you?
Yeah, I want to answer Ron's question.
I'm sure you do.
Ron is still there.
Ron, you still there?
The downside to what Ron is talking about.
Ron, you're in the wind or something. You got to get your phone.
I'm not in the wind of anything. I'm sitting in an office.
Oh.
Okay. Here's the downside in my mind to Ron's equation. Larger government and more government intrusion in personal lives. We've already been demonstrated the last couple of months that Barack Obama has come out and said no one man can oversee this, responding to Benghazi, responding to the IRS scandal, responding to the reporter scandal. He says no one man can watch this. Hillary Clinton admitted she's got so much on her plate and there's not enough money that she couldn't read the cables about the people that got killed in Benghazi. Now you want to push a $6 trillion industry of the carbon footprint, global warming, cap and trade on the American people, and you expect Barack Obama and his minions to be able to control that.
Frank, Ron, do you want to chew up Frank and spit him out, or do you want me to?
Well, either one of you. Take your turn.
I'm
tag team. I don't care, but answer the question.
Frank, for one thing, in many ways, believe it or not, I agree with you. But you always state your argument very poorly, and you need to stop doing that.
Take it very what?
You state your arguments very poorly. For one thing, you need to get over the fact about big government. As long as the United States chooses to wield military power over the whole world and outer space on top of it, big government is just where we're at, okay? You can't have your aircraft carriers, you can't have your stealth bombers, you can't have your Abrams tanks if you don't have big government.
But you want larger government on top of what we got.
I don't.
I haven't even brought government into the discussion. I want.
Well, who's going to police this? Who's going to force people into this change? Who's going to police? Who's going to force China into this change? Who's going to force?
Who forced people to shift from horses to automobiles?
The free market.
No. That was not the free market, Frank.
There's no such thing as a free market. There's never been a free market. There never will be.
And I would disagree with that. But that transportation shift was certainly driven by government policies.
Well, I have one small point I'd like to make before you guys run out of time.
All right, and we're about there.
Then Ron can pontificate about my point. But Ed, I've been listening to your show since you basically hit the airwaves with WOW.
You're an intelligent man, Frank. At least on that account.
And I've disagreed with probably 90% of the guests you've had come on your show. But of late, your guests have a more reasoned position than you. Dan Kelly has a better energy policy than you. This woman that you had on this week about the sweatshops had a more reasoned position than you. Why are you becoming increasingly to the left of your guests?
Oh, I don't. I kind of reject most every point of your argument there, Frank. I've always tried to balance this program with varying viewpoints. Actually, when I was on the radio, it was easier to do that because it wasn't just Crazy Frank from Des Moines that was calling. I had a lot of people calling with opinions that were very different from mine. So, and if anything, I'd like to get more people who disagree with me on this program. And every once in a while, somebody, for example, Ben Stone, who I agree with a lot, he'll present a viewpoint that I have some differences of opinion with. I like that. I like the ability to hear different points of view. So I kind of reject the whole premise of your
just got
comment.
messed up. You just, in my opinion, you've been becoming more and more radical since that 99% bull roar. And
that's unsubstantiated, Frank.
And besides the fact that was all a step by Obama to run against Mitt Romney, portraying Romney as the 99%, or as the 2%.
That's a bizarre conspiracy theory.
And portraying Obama as the 99%. Besides the fact of all of that, you've just become increasingly more radical since the 99%, and this is just the inevitable step. Just like Ron said,
this is a game. You listen to too much right-wing talk radio, Frank. This is a game they play. They marginalize somebody by describing them in a way that is inconsistent with anything to do with reality.
Since the start, I've patted you on the back on any number of occasions. Well,
yeah.
You've had a very measured position. And you seem sane in certain
but no longer. Now crazy Eddie's off the charts. Whoa! Is that what you're trying to say, Frank?
Now all of a sudden, you've tied yourself to this 99% movement that basically turned out to be a bunch of anarchists
Frank,
who just wanted to.
For everything,
in here a second,
I would just want to say this. For everything nice I've said about the Occupy movement, I've had plenty of criticism. But go ahead, Ron.
Frank. Why do you have a problem with anarchists if you don't like big government?
Oh.
Well, do we have to have some stoplights to control things? Nobody says there shouldn't be a basic set of ground rules.
You mean like regulation for the economy? Maybe the banking industry? Polluters? Regulation for polluters?
I'm not against a basic set of ground rules, but it's going to require 100,000 regulations to institute this healthcare law. It's going to take a number of new regulations.
I'm not a fan of the healthcare law, Frank. You're not going to.
This is larger government. Now, if you go throwing in their cap and trade, which is everybody says a $6 trillion industry, you don't think government's going to expand and government's going to get larger and government's going to get more intrusion in your life?
What freedoms have you lost to the government? I'm interested in that. What freedoms have you actually lost to the government in your lifetime? What can't you do because
I'll give you an example of something this week. I have a CDL that I'm currently not using. All of a sudden, I got to go up and take my time to run up to the DOT this week to declare whether I have to have a medical
Ron, you got to pull your phone away from your mouth there. You're,
okay. Okay, now, Frank, you do realize that driving or being on the road is not a right; it's a privilege.
Yeah, I understand
and
that.
You also realize
you know what?
You also realize that your livewivelihood doesn't exist without the government.
Listen,
I am so far over break, guys. I really got to go.
Hang on. Let me make this last point. Ron, follow your own logic. You said something on the air one time that I remember, talking about how capitalism has to feed on itself because capitalism requires more money and continual money. The same thing is with big government. Big government has to continually seek out more government to solve more problems. Because the more government you got, the more problems you got.
Frank, I'm either going to put you on hold or in a restraining jacket. Dan Kelly's. Oh, there we go. It's Ron Yarnell and Frank. Which one are you, Frank? Well, let me put you on hold, Frank, because I got to go to break. But since you just said something nice about Dan Kelly, I'll know you want to listen to his conversation about hydroelectric power. So I'll put you back on hold. I'll let Ron respond to what you just said about big government, and then I got to go to a break in a huge way. Ron?
Again, I have to ask Frank, how is he actually oppressed in any real way by big government? And I'm not hearing an answer.
Well, I would say this. I would say this, Ron.
The answer I'm hearing, he has to go to a government office. I'm sorry, your life is a living, burning hell.
I would say this, though. I think government is becoming more intrusive, and that's something we need to talk about and have talked about. In fact, I see a little drone flying around the studio. Maddie, could you swat that for me during the break? Thanks. Ron, I got to run to a break.
Yeah, and I got to attend to other things.
Good. Thank you so much for calling. We'll talk to you next week. Folks,
right.
I do want to thank the Matthew Shepard Awards Dinner for helping to sponsor this segment of our show. Again, that's coming up on June 7th. Learn more about that on my website, FallonForum.com. I want to thank Tally's Bar and Catering in Beaverdale. Check them out, folks, for a great meal, lunch, supper, or brunch on Sundays. There we go. Also, Diana's Wedding Cakes out of Newton. Again, if you're planning a wedding, consider Diana's for a quality wedding cake. And I particularly want to thank Gateway Market and Cafe for sponsoring this segment of our program. I got to have two experiences at Gateway Market yesterday. A great breakfast meeting with a friend from California, actually a friend from Iowa living in California, where I had oatmeal. And it's fantastic oatmeal. It's like designer oatmeal. And he had the breakfast burrito. So again, check them out, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe, our local grocery store. When we come back, we are either going to be talking with Dan Kelly or Nikisha Phillips, whoever gets here first. And we've got a few other little things to talk about as well. Walmart getting zapped with a big lawsuit and losing. Exxon coming out against climate change and gays. And a few other factoids relevant to climate change and this incredible rainfall we're having leading up to what is possibly the wettest spring on record.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is day 101 of webcast1live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Well, I'm sure glad those two weren't in the studio, man. That could have got ugly. No, I know that Ron and Frank would treat each other with impeccable civility, despite disagreeing. And again, I disagree too. We'll talk about some other issues coming down the pike here shortly. Waiting for Dan Kelly to join us. We're going to talk about his take on hydroelectric power, something we have not talked about on this show ever, that you don't hear a lot of conversation about in Iowa, being a somewhat flat state where water does not run too steep, too fast. I want to, on the climate change subject, I want to just talk about this one letter to the editor. I was planning on reading this on Tuesday's show, and I got a call from the Des Moines Register expressing interest in doing a story about the climate march, which I thought, I mentioned earlier how journalists are like scientists in that they appreciate facts and clarity, and they approach subjects conservatively. There are some really, really good reporters at the Des Moines Register, and Bill Petrowski's one of them. I thought he did a fine job with that story, and I respected the fact that he included an opposition quote. That's as it should be, and I have no trouble with that at all. I do want to invite the opposition quoted person, Ralph Watts, State Representative Ralph Watts, to join us for part of the march next year when it comes to his district. Anyway, this letter to the editor by Reverend Joan Wooters from Windsor Heights. Don't know her, but I thought it was interesting. She said, registers leadership needed on our climate. And this ties into what Ron was saying as well. She says, I grew up in a family in which the register was held in high regard. So I appreciated Kyle Munson's column on the historical contributions of the newspaper. She said, such leadership is now more important than ever in the face of the climate crisis. Unless we take swift and decisive action, children alive today will inherit a planet hostile to human habitation and civilization. The media have failed to educate us about this most important of issues. And I agree. And again, I appreciate the recent article, but this is a crisis and it should be front and center in the newspaper, on TV stations, on radio stations, everywhere. It should be front and center every day. We should be talking about this in some capacity. Yeah, she says that, quote, every paper should help us understand what we face and evaluate the solutions. There are facts about climate change that should scare us, as well as stories of creative ways those facts are being faced that could give us hope. It is time for the Register to live up to its legacy and become the center of a conversation long overdue. Great story. Great letter. I really appreciate that. So, I do want to thank, again, Matthew Shepard, the awards banquet coming up on June 7th. Folks, you should sign up for that. It's a good cause and a great event with Dennis and Judy Shepard, the parents of Matthew Shepard, spearheading or keynoting, rather, that event. Just a quick reminder about some of my other business sponsors. Fighting Burrito. Check them out, folks, in Ames and here in Des Moines on 13th Street. Also, Story County Veterinary Clinic. That is on Highway 30 between Ames and Nevada. I want to thank Dr. Kim Holding for her long service as a veterinarian, and also recommend that you give her a shout if your pet's got a need. Also, Ritual Cafe at 13th and Locust in downtown Des Moines, one of my favorite hangouts. I want to thank Dan Kelly, too, not as a state representative in this case, but as a realtor. If you're looking for a home, either to buy one or sell one in Newton, he's your go-to guy. And if he gets here, we will be talking with Dan Kelly in his state representative capacity. The session has ended, and Dan has some perspective to share on that. I do want to ask him about the property tax compromise, but we're going to focus our conversation on the issue of hydroelectric power. We're going to take a short break and be back with you in just a minute.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Drug and alcohol addiction slowly steals a person's identity, tearing away pieces of their life little by little until one day it seems like the hope of a happy future is gone and there's no chance of getting it back. Here at St. Gregory Retreat Centers, we can assure you that there is hope. Our unique approach to recovery begins with the understanding that the dysfunction and damage caused by addiction can be overcome, not just dealt with. Don't let another day go by. Call St. Gregory today.
Well, good morning. This is the 7th of June in the Lord's year 2010, and this is Day Uno 1 of Webcast1Live.com. We will begin with Max World Live with my special guest, Tom Coates. In just a minute, there's Tom. Wait. Howdy. And we will be live for the very first time on Webcast One Live. Someday we're going to look back on this and say, gosh, remember that old day in history? Wonder where Walter Cronkite was. He must have been around hanging there too. But actually, it's the beginning of Webcast One Live. And thank you for listening. Thanks, Rob Spearman, and everybody who's put together this project together. And we're ready to go live now. So thanks for listening to MaxWorldLive.com.
I can't tell you that it's going real well from time to time, but it is going, man.
From From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm not the guy who cared about love. I'm not the guy who cared about fortunes and such.
Welcome back, folks. I want to thank the $1 Million Marathon for sponsoring this segment of our show. I want to thank Max Wellman, too, whose music that was. I want to thank Sid's Catering. Sid Cohn, fantastic caterer. She can provide catering for any occasion or service you have. Check her out online, Catering by Sid. Also want to thank the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit, reminding you that on November 9th, that event will occur. It's become such a big event. Over close to 500 people are expected. And about 100 people come away from that every year with a new business idea that they implement. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit before we get into hydroelectric power and the property tax relief situation that the legislature passed. Get Dan Kelly's take on that. I want to talk about this Walmart lawsuit. It is no mystery, no secret that I am not a fan of Walmart, and I am delighted to. I'm delighted that there is some justice in this case that goes back over a decade. This was a lawsuit involving 16 counties in California. And apparently, I don't quite understand how the link works here, but there was something similar in Missouri. And so the settlement affects the charges against Walmart in Missouri as well. It involves criminal charges that Walmart dumped hazardous waste, in various parts of California, into the city's sanitation drains. I mean, I wish I knew more about the details, but apparently the waste was tossed into trash bins or poured into sewer systems. Also improperly taken to one of several product return centers around the U.S. without proper safety documentation. Again, without having studied this case in greater detail, I don't know who the negligent parties were, but the fact that Walmart ended up pleading guilty says volumes. And this wasn't a slap. This wasn't a tiny slap on the wrist. This was $81 million. So, again, there were 20 prosecutors involved in 32 environmental groups. There's no reason why a locally owned business by a local person who may be somewhat unscrupulous could not also be caught doing something like this. But when you're a big fish like Walmart, you should have your ducks in a row and not, this should never happen. So, I mean, good for the judicial system in this case for doing what appears to be more than just a slap on the wrist. All right. Exxon, speaking of big corporations, ExxonMobil. The CEO of ExxonMobil says there's no quick replacement for oil. Well, of course he says that. What else would he say? I think we can get off oil pretty quickly. That won't be a problem. Of course he's going to say that. Of course. So he said there's no way to sharply cut oil's use to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It would make it harder to lift 2 billion people out of poverty. I'm scratching my head on this one because a lot of the reason why more and more people are finding themselves in poverty around the world is because of challenges related to the climate crisis. And this guy, the CEO's name is Rex Tillerson. Don't know him. Never had a beer with him. He says, quote, "What good is it to save the planet if humanity suffers?" I'm just trying to wrap my mind around that quote. Okay, I am thinking about Ron's comment that, we shouldn't even be talking about saving the planet. The planet will be fine. And again, I think he's probably right, but I'm not entirely convinced. But the fact that you have to say these two things are separate, like A, it's either save the planet or keep humanity from suffering. It's like saying, A, are you for spotted owls or, for good jobs in the the lumber industry? It's not that. You both of these things are connected. This is the age-old human problem of separating ourselves from nature, of failing to identify humanity as a component of the natural world. I don't know why we can't figure that out. We are part and parcel of the natural world. And to pose this question as if you have to either choose to keep people from suffering or save the planet, as if it's okay to damage the planet. I mean, he kind of concedes that oil is damaging the planet. He kind of makes that concession there. I mean, confronted, he probably would deny it, but that's really what he's saying. Interestingly, this is a shareholders meeting. Now, environmental activists had proposed that the company set goals to reduce emissions from its products and operations. Shareholders sided with the company by a vote of nearly 3-1 to reject the proposal. Now, that to me is actually encouraging, that 30%, roughly, 33%, whatever, of ExxonMobil's shareholders voted to do something pro-environmental, reducing carbon emissions. That to me is a big story here and is encouraging. This is interesting. More ExxonMobil shareholders support reducing carbon emissions than support gay marriage. I thought that was amazing. And I don't even know why that came up at a shareholders meeting, but it did. Shareholders defeated by a vote of 4-1, in a ratio of 4-1. They defeated a resolution to explicitly ban discrimination against gays. Again, I don't even know why that came up. But the Exxon board had argued that the company already banned discrimination of any type and didn't need to add language regarding gays. Well, okay. Then again, my point would be, if you already ban it, what's the big deal? Just put it in there. It's an issue out there in the world. You know it is. But anyway, there's the real story to me, is more Exxon shareholders want to do something about climate change than support GLBT equality. Fascinating. I got to take a short break here, folks. And I want to thank the $1 Million Marathon for sponsoring this segment of our show. That's going to be this huge undertaking. It's kind of like the Climate March. Goes from coast to coast. This one focused on raising money for cancer research. It'll be starting June 21st, 160 marathons. You can be a part of that, folks. Go to Above and Beyond Cancer, their website, and look up Coast to Coast for Cancer and learn more about that event. Again, I want to thank Gateway Marketing Cafe for sponsoring this program. Check them out, folks, at 20th and Woodland. I also want to thank Community CPA and Associates, a great accounting and tax firm on Ingersoll Ave. And I want to again thank Fighting Burrito, where you can get a really, really great custom-made burrito for a very, very affordable price. We'll be back in a few minutes. We are still waiting to hear from Dan Kelly. I hope he did not get a speeding ticket. That would be very embarrassing. But I do know that Nakisha Phillips is going to join us on the phone. I don't know whether that means she's in labor and kind of calling us in between contractions or what. But we're going to hear from Nakisha Phillips and hopefully Dan Kelly when we come back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wondershad.
I'm administrative manager.
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
You know, if we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, you know, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be, it's your home.
You know, it's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're going to do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's going to be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're going to do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
I mean, if you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you going to say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're going to be listening. They're going to want to know what your challenges are. Then they're going to come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you know, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave. and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? I mean, you can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I mean, I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
I mean, fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
That's Mary McAdams, folks, and we're back to this final segment of our show, sponsored by the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. I want to again thank Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling. I want to thank Hawk Restaurant at East 5th and Walnut in the East Village neighborhood, and also thank Story County Veterinary Clinic. And I want to encourage you folks to go to my website, FallonForum.com, and support the businesses that support this program. We're going to talk briefly with Nikisha Phillips before we go to a dialogue with Dan Kelly about hydroelectric power. Nikisha, welcome to the program.
Hi, Ed. How are you?
More importantly, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I felt really bad because I totally forgot today was Thursday.
You forgot about my program, or you forgot that today was Thursday?
Well, both, I guess.
Both, okay.
Because I've been on kind of bed rest and my days just kind of all blend together, so I'm sorry.
It's okay. You're not. I was just glad you weren't calling into the show in between contractions or something.
No.
All right.
No, I'm not. And I was speaking to my doula. I'm at the library right now working on finalizing my birth plan, typing it up, and getting ready to give it to the midwives. And I was speaking to my doula, Nikki, and I got distracted. Forgot. So
that's no problem. Again, it's been interesting to hear your journey. It's nothing that, well, again, I'm a guy. Well, how can I really relate? But I feel like I've learned a lot more about this process than I ever knew, even as a father. But
it's a lot to learn.
Yeah. I mean, again, really, you're about to shift gears. You're going to be delivering this baby, and then you and Jess, your husband, are talking about what the scenarios look like from there.
Yeah, it's we've kind of come to terms with us having to kind of switch gears, and we're going to have to find not a new set of friends, but it's
that means you're going to dump me as a friend?
Yeah, you're
okay.
Totally out of it. Because when you become parents for the first time, I mean,
it is true.
And not a lot of our friends have kids, so It's going to be an interesting change, and we're kind of like preparing ourselves for that mentally.
Yeah. Well, I have kids; they just happen to be your age. So anyway,
right, exactly. Well, I plan on us hanging out a lot with your chickens. Probably.
All right. Well, yeah. They're about the same age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Nikisha, thank you for joining us again. I'm glad you have a great doula and great help from your midwife.
Yeah.
You'll probably need them a little bit longer before this all pans out. Yeah. Maybe we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, I hope we do.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Ed.
Nikisha
Bye.
Phillips, folks, getting darn close to delivery date. Dan Kelly, done with his delivery.
That's right.
Yeah, legislative session behind him.
And by the way, I have hung out with your chickens before, too.
You have?
I have. Remember, you introduced me to each one of them.
I think I pretended that they actually had names. Yeah.
So
I think we have to shift you a little bit here.
Okay. You need me to move. All right.
We need to move. For some reason that camera is busted, so move on over there.
I can handle that.
But you can't take those fancy headsets with you.
All right.
Yeah. We've never talked about hydroelectric power on this show before. But I'm afraid we're about to.
We need to. Am I on now?
Yeah, I don't even. I know that used to be an issue in Iowa with low-head dams, but I've not known it to be something that we've discussed in modern times.
Well, one of the bills that passed this last session that didn't get a lot of attention, but it's a very exciting bill for those that are interested in green energy and have environmental concerns and concerns about the climate. I know you certainly do. It was a bill that has already been signed by the governor, passed the House, Senate. He sat at his desk and signed it. Mm-hmm. It is written into law. That will extend the same tax credits to hydroelectric power projects that are extended to wind energy projects. And because this bill has been signed into law, the first new hydroelectric project in Iowa in 100 years will start very shortly and be finished by 2017 at Lake Red Rock, at the Red Rock Dam. And it's a project that will cost $260 million, and it is being paid for and put together by a power company from Missouri. And at the bill signing, they told the governor and everyone else in the room, the representatives from that company, that they are looking at two other projects. So I think it's very exciting. This actual project, $260 million, again, being invested in Iowa. It's going to produce a range of 400 to 700 jobs during the production of the facility.
The construction phase.
The construction phase. Basically what they're going to do is retrofit, refit the dam that's already in existence with hydroelectric turbines. And it will, again, employ 400 to 700 people during that construction
Probably
phase.
very few people once it's actually built. I imagine it doesn't take a lot to.
Yeah, I don't know the actual number, but it will require some experts and trained engineers there to maintain it and to operate the hydroelectric turbines. This will produce enough power for 18,000 Iowa homes. And when we were talking about the possibility of a new nuclear power plant, which I certainly did not support, we heard lots of talk from Mid-American Energy and some of the energy entities that we have baseload power needs coming in the future that will require us to seek out new sources of energy. And of course, they were promoting nuclear. But I think this hydroelectric project is certainly a good response to that. If we do have these baseload power needs in the future, we can do this through green energy.
Well, I mean, it's true that the water will keep running.
Yes,
and we have nuclear power plants that shut down all the time.
Right.
We have coal plants that have to be mothballed or taken offline for a while.
Right.
And certainly the wind doesn't blow all the time either. But the
water
does run all the time.
Water does run.
But there are lots of environmental organizations that have deep concerns about hydroelectric power.
Yes.
And what have you been presented with some of those concerns?
Well, yes. And, even wind power has some environmental concerns with birds that are killed in the
very minimal.
Very minimal.
Cats and windows.
But certainly that is a concern when it's a rare species and so forth. And I think, honestly, we hear more of that type of discussion in other parts of the country. I think in the Midwest,
our birds are a lot smarter here.
Right. We have we just haven't had that discussion quite as often. And then another discussion is often that the wind turbines will kind of mess up the skyline, kind of just that the idea that they're an eyesore. Well, frankly, I'd rather look at a wind turbine than a tanker coming from the Middle East.
I think they're kind of pretty myself.
But. Right. And the concerns on hydroelectric power, I think some of them are valid, but I think the net gain, the win that comes from hydroelectric power is certainly worth the cost. And it is certainly safer than nuclear power plant. Certainly a better alternative, I believe.
So what are the concerns?
Well,
I know that even just damming is that the Sheridan River?
Right.
Red Rock?
Right.
Even just damming that river, or for that matter, damming the Des Moines River to create Saylorville. Yeah, it's nice in a way. You got a place to boat, to swim. They make a nice bike trail around
Right.
it. But it wrecks an ecosystem,
Right?
And it's very, very short term. I mean, it doesn't last long. That thing, Saylorville, is already silting in, and I assume Red Rock is seeing some siltation as well.
Well, here's the deal, Ed. If we were to go back, I don't know, 50, 60 years ago when Lake Red Rock which is a man-made lake, was first being discussed, I'm not sure I would have been in support of that project because it takes a lot of farmland out of production. It also may or may not have had some influence on the flooding issues that we're experiencing now. I think that's a debatable discussion. But the fact is it's there. The dam is there. So what we're doing here, we're not building a new dam. We're refitting an existing dam with hydroelectric turbines. And I think we need to go further with these types of projects, frankly. There's a study by the U.S. Department of Energy that indicates that if we were to retrofit 10 of the dams along the Iowa border of the Mississippi River and 2 on the Iowa River, we would be able to produce enough electricity from those hydroelectric turbines to fill the 20% of our energy needs for the entire state.
Okay, so again, we have
we've got potential. All we're doing is retrofitting existing
but
dams.
you're saying dams along the Mississippi River,
along the Iowa border of the Mississippi.
And then you said the Missouri River, or
no, the Iowa River.
Iowa River.
There's two dams in the Iowa River.
Coralville Reservoir,
I believe so. And I'm not sure
what the other one
I'm not sure of the location of the other, but there are 10 along the Iowa border of the Mississippi that could be retrofitted with hydroelectric turbines. If we were to take on those projects, we would produce enough power to provide 20% of our needs for the state of Iowa, simply from retrofitting an existing dam. So we're not talking about building new structures. We're not talking about new man-made lakes. We're talking about retrofitting. And I think that's an important, I've said it several times, and I think it's important that we make that clear.
I'm intrigued. I mean, I really have not thought a lot about hydroelectric power. It's never come up on this program before. Yeah. We never discussed it when I was in the legislature.
Right.
I want to make sure that the folks who have studied this issue and have concerns about it have their voices heard.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's very important. And frankly, Ed, I've worked really hard on this bill throughout the session, and I'm very glad that the governor signed it. I've not heard from very many people with those concerns. I know that those concerns are out there. And maybe as we further explore this in the state of Iowa, we'll hear more. So I certainly invite everyone, whether they're in favor or have concerns or just want to learn more about the hydroelectric opportunities in Iowa, to contact me.
Yeah.
And let's talk about it. But I think it's a great step forward for green energy. I think it's an area that we have not explored enough. Clearly, if this is the first new project in 100 years, it's something we need to take a look at.
We're a little rusty.
Right, a little rusty, and very thankful that this power company in Missouri has an interest in doing this. It's right down the road from my community, and I'm hoping that some local folks can get some of those jobs on construction of the facility.
Well, by the way, you have a new fan, Dan.
I do.
Frank from Des Moines.
Hey, well, I'm glad to hear that.
He said you made much more sense than I do generally.
He does. Well, I didn't know that, and
I'm not sure.
I'm a fan of Frank's too, to a point. If I can be a fan without agreeing with him on everything, I'll be a fan.
There you go. Yeah, the property. We really don't have time to discuss the property tax bill, but I do know that the folks supporting it. And I think you were among the supporters.
Yes.
The Register is not giving a very warm review to it in today's paper, basically describing it as a tax shift that's going to put the burden on cities. Are you hearing from Newton and other cities that they're concerned about this? Or is that not an issue?
I communicated with the city of Newton and the other cities in my district as well. Have a good relationship with many of the city council members and mayors and so forth. And it's a compromise deal, and it's not perfect. Yeah. And we're going to have to take a look at how it affects city government. But ultimately, I didn't want to see the burden shifted to farmers and homeowners.
Yeah.
I wanted to see some support from Main Street businesses. There's a little more support for the larger companies than what I was.
There's less than Branstad wanted, but it's still significant.
Right. And it's a compromise deal. You know, when you take a look, and I've only had a week to kind of sum it all up, I think this last session, we really focused on doing some of the right things. And the end results were compromise bills on property tax, health care, and education that we voted on the last day. And there are good things in all of those bills. There are some things that we need to keep an eye on. And this is certainly one of them. And I'm glad that the Register has pointed this out, but it's not news to me. Well, we need to keep an eye on how it affects cities.
It's a good point, because the big issue is the state is backfilling some of the lost property tax revenue to the cities, but it is not committed to backfilling much, not maybe what, 60% or so.
Right.
And you know, and if it fails to commit to keep its commitment to that level that it's already said it would do, that could be a problem as well. So we'll keep an eye on it. We got to run.
Yeah.
The show's over.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. I know you had some trouble getting here.
Yeah. Well, there. If you're heading on Interstate 80 to the west, there's a few accidents there. And I wasn't really planning to give a traffic report here, but
the Dan Kelly
but it was a slower drive today.
Yeah, we're used to the we were formerly used to the Charles Goldman NASCAR report. Now we have the Dan Kelly traffic report.
Well, I'll bring a NASCAR report now and again.
All right,
yeah.
Folks. Thanks so much, Dan, for joining us.
You,
and again, thanks to the Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit for sponsoring this segment of our show. Quick reminder, and this is something you might want to promote to some of your constituents too, Dan. Sure. It's on November 9th at Drake University, a great event going on for, I think it's 5th or 6th year now, and it produces a lot of great information that leads to the creation of a lot of small businesses. So check it out, folks, the IES, Immigrant Entrepreneur Summit. I want to thank Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering one more time, one of my great business clients in Beaverdale. Also want to thank Community CPA and Associates, and Ritual Cafe. Ritual Cafe is on 13th between Locust and Grand. I want to thank Maddie Arrington, Webcast One Live, for providing the studio. And I will be back tomorrow.